others. "Your mother has beautiful hair," said the King, "but I fancy you will find your own less easy to manage." And indeed it was so. The Princess's hair began by being a yard long, and it grew an inch every night. If you know anything at all about the simplest sums, you will see that in about 5 weeks her hair was about 2 yards long. This is a very inconvenient length. It trails on the floor and sweeps up all the dust, and though in palaces, of course, it is all gold dust, still it is not nice to have it in your hair. And the Princess's hair was growing an inch every night. When it was 3 yards long, the Princess could not bear it any longer. It was so heavy and so hot. So she borrowed Nurse's cutting-out scissors and cut it all off, and then for a few hours she was comfortable. But the hair went on growing, and now it grew twice as fast as before, so that in 36 days it was as long as ever. The poor Princess cried with tiredness. When she couldn't bear it any more she cut her hair, and was comfortable for a very little time. For the hair now grew 4 times as fast as at first, and in 18 days it was as long as before, and she had to have it cut. Then it grew 8 inches a day, and the next time it was cut it grew 16 inches a day, and then 32 inches, and 64 inches, and 128 inches a day, and so on, growing twice as fast after each cutting, till the Princess would go to bed at night with her hair clipped short, and wake up in the morning with yards and yards and yards of golden hair flowing all about the room, so that she could not move without pulling her own hair, and Nurse had to come and cut the hair off before she could get out of bed. "I wish I was bald again," sighed poor Melisande, looking at the little green caps she used to wear, and she cried herself to sleep o' nights between the golden billows of the golden hair. But she never let her mother see her cry, because it was the Queen's fault, and Melisande did not want to seem to reproach her. When first the Princess's hair grew, her mother sent locks of it to all her royal relations, who had them set in rings and brooches. Later the Queen was able to send enough for bracelets and girdles. But presently so much hair was cut off that they had to burn it. Then when autumn came all the crops failed. It seemed as though all the gold of the harvest had gone into the Princess's hair, and there was a famine. Then Melisande said, "It does seem a pity to waste all my hair. It does grow so very fast. Couldn't we stuff things with it or something, and sell them to feed the people?" So the King called a council of merchants, and they sent out samples of the Princess's hair, and soon orders came pouring in, and the Princess's hair became the staple export of that country. They stuffed pillows with it, and they stuffed beds with it. They made ropes of it for sailors to use, and curtains for hanging in kings' palaces. They made haircloth of it for hermits and other people who wished to be uncomfy. But it was so soft and silky that it only made them happy and warm, which they did not wish to be. So the hermits gave up wearing it, and instead mothers bought it for their little babies, and all well-born infants wore little shirts of princess haircloth. And still the hair grew and grew, and the people were fed, and the famine came to an end. Then the King said, "It was all very well while the famine lasted, but now I shall write to my fairy godmother, and see if something cannot be done." So he wrote, and sent the letter by a skylark, and by return of bird came this answer: "Why not advertise for a competent prince? Offer the usual reward." So the King sent out his heralds all over the world to proclaim that any respectable prince with proper references should marry the Princess Melisande if he could stop her hair growing. Then from far and near came trains of princes anxious to try their luck, and they brought all sorts of nasty things with them in bottles and round wooden boxes. The Princess tried all the remedies, but she did not like any of them, and she did not like any of the princes, so in her heart she was rather glad that none of the nasty things in bottles and boxes made the least difference to her hair. The Princess had to sleep in the great throne room now, because no other room was big enough to hold her and her hair. When she woke in the morning, the long high room would be quite full of her golden hair, packed tight and thick like wool in a barn, and every night, when she had had the hair cut close to her head, she would sit in her green silk gown by the window and cry, and kiss the little green caps she used to wear, and wish herself bald again. It was as she sat crying there on Midsummer Eve that she first saw Prince Florizel. He had come to the palace that evening, but he would not appear in her presence with the dust of travel on him, and she had retired with her hair borne by 20 pages before he had bathed and changed his garments and entered the reception room. Now he was walking in the garden in the moonlight, and he looked up and she looked down, and for the first time Melisande, looking on a prince, wished that he might have the power to stop her hair from growing. As for the prince, he wished many things, and the first was granted him, for he said, "You are Melisande? And you are Florizel? There are many roses round your window," said he to her, "and none down here." She threw him one of 3 white roses she held in her hand. Then he said, "White rose trees are strong. May I climb up to you?" "Surely," said the Princess. So he climbed up to the window. "Now," said he, "if I can do what your father asks, will you marry me?" "My father has promised that I shall," said Melisande, playing with the white roses in her hand. "Dear Princess," said he, "your father's promise is nothing to me. I want yours. Will you give it to me?" "Yes," said she, and gave him the second rose. "I want your hand." "Yes," she said, "and your heart with it." "Yes," said the Princess, and she gave him the third rose. "And a kiss to seal the promise." "Yes," said she. "And a kiss to go with the hand." "Yes," she said. "And a kiss to bring the heart." "Yes," said the Princess, and she gave him the 3 kisses. "Now," said he, when he had given them back to her, "to-night do not go to bed. Stay by your window, and I will stay down here in the garden and watch. And when your hair has grown to the filling of the room, call to me, and then do as I tell you." "I will," said the Princess. So at dewy sunrise the Prince, lying on the turf beside the sundial, heard her voice. "Florizel, Florizel, my hair has grown so long that it is pushing me out of the window." "Get out on to the window sill," said he, "and twist your hair 3 times round the great iron hook that is there." And she did. Then the Prince climbed up the rose bush, with his naked sword in his teeth, and he took the Princess's hair in his hand, about a yard from her head, and said, "Jump!" The Princess jumped and screamed, for there she was hanging from the hook by a yard and a half of her bright hair. The Prince tightened his grasp of the hair, and drew his sword across it. Then he let her down gently by her hair, till her feet were on the grass, and jumped down after her. They stayed talking in the garden till all the shadows had crept under their proper trees, and the sundial said it was breakfast time. Then they went in to breakfast, and all the court crowded round to wonder and admire, for the Princess's hair had not grown. "How did you do it?" asked the King, shaking Florizel warmly by the hand. "The simplest thing in the world," said Florizel modestly. "You have always cut the hair off the Princess. I just cut the Princess off the hair." "Humph," said the King, who had a logical mind, and during breakfast he more than once looked anxiously at his daughter. When they got up from breakfast the Princess rose with the rest, but she rose and rose and rose till it seemed as though there would never be an end of it. The Princess was 9 feet high. "I feared as much," said the King sadly. "I wonder what will be the rate of progression. You see," he said to poor Florizel, "when we cut the hair off, it grows. When we cut the Princess off, she grows. I wish you had happened to think of that." The Princess went on growing. By dinner time she was so large that she had to have her dinner brought out into the garden, because she was too large to get indoors. But she was too unhappy to be able to eat anything, and she cried so much that there was quite a pool in the garden, and several pages were nearly drowned. So she remembered her Alice in Wonderland, and stopped crying at once. But she did not stop growing. She grew bigger and bigger and bigger, till she had to go outside the palace gardens and sit on the common, and even that was too small to hold her comfortably,